So how can you help someone else feel like they belong if you're struggling with being heard yourself? As a leader, where are you getting your community from? Where are you getting your fill from?
Do you feel the pressure to grow your business, but doing so feels a bit like drowning? Welcome to Slow Growth Business, the show for business owners and leaders to quiet the noise and lead your business to success, one day at a time, slow and steady. If you feel your business is running you and you're ready to run it, you've come to the right place. Now, here are your hosts, business coaches Jimmy DeGroat and me, Kyle Bullock.
What book are you listening to?
Right now, I'm listening to a book by Jeffrey L. Cohen called Belonging. It's a book from a psychologist who is writing about our sense of belonging in a community, whether we feel like we belong or not, and the things that may happen when we don't feel like we belong. Starting with this, in the needs of a human being, and I do mean an absolute human need for us to function well or at all. The need to belong is there. You have like food, shelter, clothing, the physical needs. You need safety needs, like I'm not going to be eaten by a mountain lion this afternoon. That kind of a safety need. I'm not going to get like my house broken into. I need that need for safety. And like right next to those needs is the need to belong, like that I belong to a community. I belong to some group because we're not meant to be isolated creatures.
Is this part of Maslow's hierarchy? Okay.
Absolutely. Okay. Absolutely. And our understanding, by the way, of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, for those who are psychology nerds like me, that was put into a pyramid structure with belonging kind of in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the research lately has said maybe that belonging actually belongs a little closer to the base, because when we don't feel like we belong, really bad things happen and people get very frustrated. I was talking to somebody last night. I was at a social thing. I was talking to this woman about her previous employment. She's currently unemployed. And I said, well, what did you do for a living? And she was explaining how she was in the medical profession. And the last employer that she was at, basically she left because she just didn't feel like she belonged. She didn't feel like she could be a part of a culture that actually cared about her. I thought, man, that's really sad. It burned her out so much that she doesn't want to even go back to the medical profession anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Just completely ixnay it. It has me thinking this morning about some of the fundamentals of belonging in our business and why that might be important. We've talked for a couple of weeks about what happens when employees leave, about compliance and cooperation. So we've talked a little bit about this need for us to be leaders that are bringing people into our fold and being intentional with them. And as they leave, that we try to make that a good experience. But I'm kind of curious what your thoughts are on how we create an environment in our store, in our businesses, of belonging, that the people who come in the doors, perhaps starting with employees, feel like they actually belong there. What do we do? And I'm talking about like get as practical as you possibly can so that it's not just too philosophical, head in the clouds.
Right.
Like,
right.
What makes people feel like they belong? Because they need it. They need that in our business to function well.
All right. So you're asking me, first of all, I think the saddest thing about this particular woman's experience is that from a corporate standpoint, what would fix that problem is not even monetary. It wouldn't cost them a dime. In fact, it would benefit them greatly to work on this. The thing is, I guess I looked at myself as an employer. First of all, I'm grateful that they want to come and work for me. I'm grateful that the gods of the universe have created a vision of my business as a place that people want to be. So that's neat. That's awesome. So I appreciate that and hold that dear, but also the fact that they're willing to invest and risk, whether it's leaving another opportunity, whether it's stepping away from something, maybe it might be stepping away from the home where the kids are, off to school and things like that. They're stepping away from something to come and work for me. So I appreciate that as well. Of course, yes, there is going to be a lot of investment on my part in terms of getting these people up to speed and in the organization. It's as simple as we're going to spend a lot of time here. Let's enjoy it. Let's all enjoy it. If I'm going to be a boss that's hard-headed and heavy-handed and my way or the highway kind of thing, it's not going to be fun for a lot of people. I want it to be fun for people. I want them to enjoy. James Taylor wrote a song called The Secret of Life. The secret of life is enjoying the passage of time. Any fool can do it. There ain't nothing to it. And I love that song because whenever I start getting overwhelmed with too many complex ideas and thoughts. Wait a minute. Are we enjoying the passage of time here? To me, that's how I approach everything. And I love that you're a psychology geek because I am too. I love knowing the underlying reasons and needs and drivers of people. That's a lot of fun for me. And that's a challenge for me. So I love that. To understand, like you have been teaching lately on the management platform, that people probably aren't going to stay with you forever. If they do, God bless them. Maybe we don't want them to stay with us forever. Whatever moves us on in life, the average, I think you said, was about 7 years.
Yeah.
And you know what? If our hopes and dreams match up, then great, we're going to have a great time at work. But if they don't match up and they have other hopes and dreams, you should bless them as they walk out the door and thank them for, being here. Do everything that you can to encourage and even maybe even help them move on.
And by the way, shout out to Dr. Andy Wood, who you just referenced there. For our listeners, Andy's got a feature on our management platform, our business leadership coaching platform, that you can check out where he shared some of those thoughts. And he's got a lot of great things to say on this. So shout out to him.
He's got a great book, Life Vesting, fantastic book.
Check it out. Because it goes right along with what we're talking about here. In his book, Jeff Cohen here talked about a situation where there was this really heated argument between a professor and a student at a university. And they were really just in a heated argument over philosophy theory or some kind. And the student just kept heating up and heating up, eventually erupted by saying something to the effect of, well, you just haven't heard me. The argument wasn't about who one was right and one was wrong. It wasn't about freedom of speech, which were some of the themes that were being talked about in this discussion. The student erupts with, you just didn't hear me. The author of this book goes, that's the moment for us to capture. That's what we want to focus on. For us to feel like we belong, we have to feel like we've been heard. It just feels so bad when you're talking to someone who isn't really listening.
Right.
You're on the phone with customer service. Let's use air quotes there. Yeah. And you're trying to explain your case and they just keep explaining things back to you. It's like, have you listened to a word?
Right. They're reading from a screen, for crying out loud, right?
It makes you feel like not a human. I'm a human and I have feelings and I want you to hear them. Even if they're irrational and wrong, I'm feeling them for some reason that you may or may not be aware of. But I just want to be heard. We talked for a couple of weeks about compliance and cooperation on the podcast. And I think at the heart of that, really, it does come down to, are you hearing your people? Are you listening? Mm-hmm. And in order to do that, sometimes maybe the litmus test is that you're not always hearing things that you want to hear. You're hearing things that are uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But they're important. Maybe they're not even logically correct, but someone's just spouting off about their frustrations in their day, or no one's listening to me or whatever. The thing that's important to capture, as I just mentioned in Dr. Cohn's story, was maybe they're logically incorrect, but emotionally, let's just focus on that. They don't feel heard. So maybe they just need to sit down and vent with you in an office for 20 or 30 minutes just to get it out, and then have someone not give them answers back. Just go, I hear you.
Yep.
I hear you.
Sure.
I'm with you.
Yeah. And like I said, it doesn't cost a dime. It doesn't cost a dime, but it will eventually cost you a dime when that person leaves, because you got to train a new person, hire a new person, et cetera.
But gosh, I'm thinking right now I just thought of a situation you and I both worked with where the leader felt exhausted by these conversations. And we get this plenty where people, I'm so exhausted at the drama in my staff or whatever's going on out there. They don't have the wherewithal as a leader to sit down and listen to this person because they're just frustrated and they're drained by it, which, trust me, I get. It can be draining, no matter if you're gifted at it or not. I just thought, man, perhaps this leader is feeling drained because they themselves don't feel like they belong. Mm-hmm. So how can you help someone else feel like they belong if you're struggling with being heard yourself? You know what I mean? As a leader, where are you getting your community from? Where are you getting your fill from? Is it from a coach? Is it from a mentor? Is it from a think tank group of people who are like-minded? If you're out there trying to do it by yourself and you feel like you're a lone wolf leading your business, that's going to make creating an environment of belonging very, very hard, if not, I think, impossible to do. Because how can you help someone feel something that you yourself aren't feeling?
Yep. You know what? And I've always been a person that has asked the question, do I know the answer to this? And if I don't, who do I know? Or what resource can I go to and get that answer? What professional resource or friend or what have you? That's one of the things we've always done in the business is, hey, we're not that great at inventory. Let's hire a consultant in to teach us how to, properly inventory. That's one of the things I love about this little flag page test. It's called flagpagetest.com. It's just it's like a Myers-Briggs. It's a typical test, but I love getting at the heart of what drives people. Just in a roundabout way, I think what Kyle's saying, what I'm saying is go find resources. Go find resources, whether you hire them professionally or their friends, or maybe it's a book, maybe it's a podcast. Hopefully this podcast blesses people with, a little bit of hey, there's other people out there that have the same issues that I do.
Can I put you on the spot with something?
Yeah. Do
We're
it.
talking about resources and a need to belong as a leader so that you can help others feel that as well. I'll put you on the spot. I know that you've got a group of business owners that you meet with on a weekly basis in the morning.
Yeah.
Can you describe that, and what has that done for you as a leader? What does that give you each week?
Well, it's a very, very casual thing, and there's not an agenda. It started with COVID. We just it started with about 70 people. Hey, how are we going to get through this together? Let's get on and let's talk about it. Right now, it's pared down to five people, and it's really cool because we're all buddies. It's a great place for us as friends to ask anything and tell anything. It's a safe place. That's important, right? It's important. That's what I have with my marriage with Sharon it's a safe place to talk to her about anything. I think it's important to have a safe place. It's not a big, deep psychology group. I mean, we talk about, well, what are you doing for a printer? Where do you get job envelopes from? How's this vendor working out for you? But that's fun. That's just a group of guys sitting around a table, having beers, chatting. It's important. Now that you asked that question, I was always part of what we called FIT, or early on it was called SCULL. There was SCULL groups where a group of accountability partners got together and you get in a room once or twice a year. You tell everything, you show everything, set your ego aside. It's just important. I guess it's like seeing a therapist.
You're not alone.
Yeah.
The best thing you can leave from those is that you're not alone. You belong. I've got similar things that have done that for me over the years and even still.
Well, you've got a business coach, right?
Yeah. I've got a business coach. He has pushed me for years to consider things that I wouldn't consider. And some weeks we just sit around and we just talk about life.
Yeah.
Just a catch up 1 hour a week. It provides accountability. It provides a safe place. It's nice. I've had that with my dad. I was lucky. I have my dad and worked with him for a number of years. And once a week, we would just get together for breakfast. And sometimes we had deep conversations and sometimes we ate breakfast and talked about football or something.
Yeah.
I mean, whatever's happening at the time. Just having a place.
I want to interrupt a second because I'm thinking, well, Kyle and I, folks, I'm talking to you people now. Kyle and I work with owners or managers. Sometimes there are managers that say things like, well, he would never go for that. And so there's a communication breakdown there. What do we do if we're in this state and we have a boss? Yeah. What do we do for resources in that instance?
That's a really good question. I feel like I can only answer that the way that my personality would. And perhaps that is to give permission to people to lead. And what I mean by that is we're talking about belonging. And when you have a situation where there's somebody in authority over you who's not listening or not hearing you, or you just go, they wouldn't go for that, they're stick in the mud. Sometimes you can push them and they grow, and sometimes that's just not in the cards.
Mm-hmm.
But leadership is influence, nothing more and nothing less. You can influence people at any rank, at any level, in any situation, right? That doesn't require credentials.
Right.
If you're a manager or an employee and you feel stuck because you're not being heard, nothing's stopping you from gathering those resources on your own and growing. Find those things, those outlets, those groups and people that encourage growth. Nothing is stopping you from doing that.
Right. Right.
Could it create an uncomfortable situation where you're growing and the organization you're in doesn't want to grow? Sure. But
yeah.
It's almost
Yeah.
better to be able to go to that bridge than not at all, and then cross it when you get there. Nothing says that you have to be the owner of a business to help create a sense of belonging.
Right.
You just have to be a leader, and that means you can be an influencer. I can think of janitors who have been phenomenal connectors
Mm-hmm.
and belonging creators, bring people into the fold.
Yeah.
And we think of that as a lowly position, when in reality, this person is like, they're the linchpin of the organization because they just take the leadership upon themselves by surrounding themselves with the input that they need to be challenged to grow, and then being generous to share that with people.
Yeah.
And they
Yeah.
just bring people together. That's leadership, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
And maybe that's here on this podcast. People hopefully are getting inspired that way. We remain open for anybody, owners, managers, employees, janitors, who want to have a conversation about creating belonging in their organization and their lives. You can reach out and email us.
I have a question for you. I own a business. How do I find out if there is a lack of being heard in my organization? And number two, how do I remedy that? Do I have to pay you for the answer?
Yeah, $99 a month. No, I'm kidding. No, I'll give it to you for free. I think it's a free litmus test. It means reading the room. You got to have a little emotional intelligence. Maybe you get some outside perspective to help you with this.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe another way you could reframe that same question is, how do I know if there's belonging going on in my organization or not? How do I know that my people feel like they belong here? Which goes back to, are they being heard? Am I creating a good atmosphere?
I think one test that it's not working is you have a revolving door of employees.
Yeah.
That's probably one big tell.
Absolutely. Do you get told problems? Are you hearing problems? If you hear no problems, there's no organization I've ever seen or been in ever that's had no problems. When you don't hear problems, that's a symptom of a bigger problem.
That's a red flag.
Big red flag. When your people leave at the end of the day, generally, are they more stressed? Are they counting down the minutes and the seconds to get out of there? Is there sharing going on? Are people sharing, and are people getting better? Are they growing?
Mm-hmm.
To me, those are all atmospheric questions. I like what you said. If you have a revolving door of employees who are leaving or customers who aren't sticking around, you're not hearing problems.
Yeah. I like what you just said there. Are they clocking out right on the hour, or do they kind of stick around a few minutes to finish up things and have pride in their work and not feel in such a hurry to get out of there? I think that's a good signal as well.
Yeah. And when you walk into a room, how does the emotional atmosphere change in them? Psychologically, real quick, and then we can end it on this. People get their emotional energy from the person who's most expressive in the room. And sometimes that comes from the person of most power or most influence. Let's use the word influence. So when you walk into the room, does everyone suddenly get quiet? Does everyone stiffen up? Does the atmosphere go from like, well, whatever I just walked into, everyone change their attitude immediately?
Mm-hmm.
Or are they still able to just be themselves?
Yeah.
That's a big tell. And then it means that you got to look at yourself as a leader and go, okay, people are changing their reactions just because I walked into a room and they go, oh man, here comes the Grouchmeister. Time for me to surround myself with leaders and people who will help me change that.
Yeah.
I hope this is helpful. This was fun. Perhaps we'll have more reflections on how to create a sense of belonging. But I hope those who are listening will leave this episode and listen, just hear this week. Just spend some time with people, really hearing them. And maybe even go out of your way to just ask one or two people on your team or your customers walking in that you wouldn't normally, how's life? And then just listen, and don't try to give them prescriptions or respond with answers. Just listen.
Mm-hmm.
That may be the foundation of creating belonging.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because I was going to ask, what's a very simple way that a leader could, once they've taken the temperature of their organization, they could start to remedy that, so to speak. So I like that idea. Just walk around, talk to them. What's going on? How's life? You're smart.
So are you.
We hope you leave this episode a little better than when you first began. If you'd like more resources to grow your business slow, steady, and consistently, check out our on-demand video catalog at trainretail.com. Or if you have a question or frustration we can help address in your business, write to us about it. We love to help solve big, ugly problems. So hit us up at kyle@trainretail.com or jimmy@trainretail.com. Good luck out there, and we will see you next time.